everybody. I'm here today with Ryan Ford. He is the founder and CEO of Revolution Hearing. Hey, Ryan, how you doing today? Thanks for joining us.
Doing great. Thanks. Glad to be
So
here.
let's just get right to the questions. If you don't mind, Ryan, tell me a little bit about your business, Revolution Hearing.
So it's an audiology and hearing aid business. We cater to mostly senior citizens that suffer from hearing loss. Makes our business a little bit different. When I founded it, I wanted to focus on the employees just as much as the customers, and so we've built a great team here.
Excellent. So, how long have you been in business with this?
I've been in the industry for 10 years, but I founded the company just under 3 years ago. We kind of got started right middle of 2020, right in the heart of COVID. Great time to start a business.
So who do you serve? I mean, who's your ideal customer?
Typically, our target customers are 55 and up. Average customer age for us is about 65 to 75. Those who have come to terms with some kind of hearing loss. Hearing loss is very prevalent in our senior community, and it's actually much more prevalent in younger demographics as well. But there is a lack of awareness about it and need for getting tested. But really, everybody over the age of 55 should have annual hearing screenings.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I'm got a military background, and I flew helicopters, and so a lot of loud noises. I have.
If you didn't have some kind of, hearing loss in the high frequencies, I would be flabbergasted.
Yeah. And I've got tinnitus, it ringing constantly in my ears. So
which most of the time is fixed just with amplification. So we typically see tinnitus happens in an area where the brain's not getting stimulus from a high range of frequencies that are suffering from a loss. So when we fix that little bit of loss, the tinnitus ends up dissipating significantly.
You mentioned you started this in 2020, middle of COVID. What were some of the impacts of starting your business during that time?
For me, it was a unique opportunity because I actually ended up starting with a mobile practice. I had an office location, but I was still going to patients' homes, community centers, seeing people where they were instead of subjecting them to come into the office. And so it was actually good timing. I think COVID actually helped me rather than hurt me.
So you planned to have a mobile office to begin with. That wasn't a pivot because of COVID. It's what you planned on, and it just happened to be, hey, great timing for that.
Yeah. And since then, we've minimized some of the mobile offerings that we do as a business as a whole, and just for efficiency in the office locations. But it's still offered by some of our providers in some of the states.
So you mentioned that you want to provide a great environment for your employees, and so you focus on employees as much as you do with customers, which is amazing. Talk to me about some of the things you do, to build that strong team with your employees.
Sure. I mean, company culture was really important to me. What I tried to do was create the opportunity that I always wanted when I was employed. What kind of management style would we employ? What kind of company culture would we have? What kind of work-life balance we have? In this industry, the heart of the business is the providers, the people that are testing and fitting hearing aids and counseling patients. And you can't, in my opinion, you really can't overpay a provider if they're doing a great job. And also, we want to treat them like professionals so they're not micromanaged. At a lot of other companies, what happens is a talented provider, a master's degree, PhD, doctorate audiologist will come on, and they're bottom person on the totem pole and get micromanaged to death until the job's no fun. And there's no unique ability for them to counsel patients how they see fit. And, spending time meeting with hundreds of other practice owners across the country, I've learned that what makes those successful practices what they are is the uniqueness of those owner operators or the providers that are in there. Typically, they're mom and pop shops. It's an owner operator that works them, and they get to decide. And so I wanted to do that at scale. How do we allow providers freedom to counsel and still have some kind of guardrail so that we can control certain things? And that's been an interesting balance.
So you mentioned culture. Of course, having an intentional culture is paramount in any business. A lot of business owners don't realize that, and they don't have an intentional culture. That just a culture typically emerges, and it might not be what they want. It might be a culture derived from their employees or their customers. So having an intentional culture with the business owner is super important. What are some of your points of culture, and maybe a couple of your key ones that you see are key for you?
I think being casual is something that we've really focused on. Everybody having a space of an open line of communication with me, with the leadership team. Nobody's afraid to say anything. All ideas are good ideas, kind of thing. There's no shutting anybody down because of some off the wall topic or idea they've had. We've hired wisely so that we can ensure that we're not getting too crazy. But we trust all of our employees, and we try to create leadership with all the providers in the individual clinics. So we don't need a bunch of middle management. Instead, we have providers, or we have leadership at an individual location basis.
I see. So what's been some of the biggest issues that you've had to overcome as a business owner?
I think evolving my interview process has probably been one of the big ones. I think I had something else written down to answer that question, but I think that off the top of my head, that was one of the big things I've discovered, is that it's all about the interview process. It's all about trusting my gut on a hire, and hiring smarter. We've had staff that have come and gone because we didn't hire wisely.
Yeah. So you talk about culture, right? Intentional culture. Now we're a hiring process. How do you link the two together? Because in our experience, you have to position culture at the very beginning, right? Culture fit's almost more important than skill fit. How do you do that when you go through the interview process?
It's really one of the first interviews we do. It's really easy to sell this position. Like, I mean, we don't have to oversell it. As soon as I get on a phone with somebody, or one of my leadership team get on a phone call with a potential employee, they always want to learn more. And they always want to check out the next phase. And we just kind of lay that groundwork, and we like to call it responsible flexibility for our providers, that we're not going to micromanage them, but that they act like professionals. And the way that we say it is, like, if the patients are happy and you're happy, and we're not losing money, I'm happy. We can always optimize from there.
Yeah. So what have you learned about yourself during this journey?
I think the biggest thing I've learned about myself is that I've got a propensity to solve problems, right? That's my big focus. I just gravitate towards problems and solve them. And we've actually had some spin-off businesses that have evolved from that to service the industry, because we've identified other problems that other clinics have, and we've created businesses to solve those problems. But that's what I do with my staff on a day-to-day basis. What problems are you having? And so everybody knows they can come to me as soon as they have a problem. If they can't think of an answer, usually I can help them solve it within 5 minutes.
Excellent.
So it's this skill set that I've figured out that I have.
Okay. So what's the future look like for Revolution Hearing, and what do you see as some of the main challenges moving forward?
The future for us looks bright. We're planning on expanding into multiple states across the eastern half of the country. I think we're in 7 states now with 23 locations. We'll be opening 2 more locations this month, hoping to open another half dozen before the end of the year, and hopefully another 20 to 30 next year.
That's amazing. That's some really amazing growth very quickly. Is your business model, are these all company owned? Are you a franchise model?
No, it's all owned by me. I've got a small partner who is my CFO. He's been great to kind of help pull a lot of the HR finance stuff day to day. We've created a leadership team that has really helped push me onto that kind of visionary state to help expand, horizontally. And we're building teams to help us build those expansions up vertically as we go.
All right. So expanding, obviously, growing, expanding fast can have some challenges. What are some of the challenges you see as you move forward?
I really like the gray area, right? So this is one of my big things that I talk about all the time with my staff. Like, there's a lot of magic in the gray. Everything doesn't need to be black and white. And so balancing that at scale is very tough. It was easy when we were, a dozen people, right? We could all operate in the gray area. And as we've needed to make more things black and white and set up a certain amount of guardrails, I think the hardest part is not becoming too rigid, because I think structure is obviously important, but rigidity can lead to halting other opportunities and diminishing opportunities that pop up.
Yeah, kind of squashing initiative sometimes at the employee
Absolutely
level too, right? So However, I mean, really good businesses are built on really good systems. It's how you're able to, to replicate quickly,
Right.
putting some of those systems in place. So you must have some great systems in place to be able to, to grow like you've grown so quickly.
We do. We do. And a lot of that's become just because of the relationships that we've created. It's another thing that I've learned over the last 2 years is like the relationships are so important. That's been my biggest role over the last year is just relationship development with other vendors and people in the industry.
So what advice would you give anyone that's thinking of going into business?
Into business in general,
Yeah.
you know, it's, I'm a fire, aim, shoot kind of guy, you know. So I think that just that same point that we covered is making sure that you've got enough structure to be safe, but allow enough fluidness to adjust and adapt, and always be opportunistic. That's one thing we've really focused on is looking at, especially for our acquisitions. We do acquire other businesses,
Mhm.
and so always being opportunistic and not putting everything through a one single mold, um, but allowing the business to be fluid enough to adapt.
Yeah, that's some great advice because I think when people start their business, that they're very rigid in how they do it. Typically, thinking they have to have certain things in place before the other things, and sometimes being that rigid prevents you from ever getting started. Right? You're never
Yeah,
able
the
to get
analysis
started.
paralysis
Yeah.
that happens. I think there's two things that happen to most people that want to go into business. It's either that they overanalyze and they don't do anything, or they try to do everything at one time and they try to take care of all of the customers that they possibly can and adapt to them, which ends up haltering their potential growth.
Yeah, absolutely. So Ryan, is there any offers that you'd like to include in the newsletter?
I was thinking about that is that, for other business, this is geared towards business owners. So I think that we're always looking for other businesses that cater to the same demographic to create mutual referral relationships. So
Okay.
anybody that's dealing with the 55 and up demographic, to reach out to us. Anybody who's looking to get into this specific interesting, industry, reach out to me.
Well, Ryan, that wraps up the interview. Nice job. Really appreciate you taking time with us today.
Yeah, man. Happy to. Anytime.